Hey there, everybody. It is time once again for us to convene and talk about Magic the Gathering. We're getting towards the end of this game's particular life cycle. Thankfully, 2015 is on the way. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you guys a really fun, pretty cool Warsmith build. I'm sure this is going to be fairly controversial, and I'm sure you already see why. Let's talk about the cards down in the deck first, then we'll jump up top and we'll talk about who we're leaving out, which we'll organize that way so we can get the majority of me getting yelled at out of the way. I'm sure this will be a controversial build, but this is how I found it to be the most reliable, which is always what I want out of my decks, is reliability. I want to be able to know exactly what's going to happen. Starting off with that reliability is going to be your mana base. Obviously, we've gone an even 12-12 split here. The math is pretty much agreeing with that 12-12 split. You know how I like to go through and I count up all the symbols. So that's one. And, obviously, but this is two. It's not just, you don't just count the creatures, the white creatures, red creatures, white spells, red spells that you have. You want to count the symbols up. And then you do a little math skullduggery with that, and we'll get more in 2015 when we're definitely building our own decks and really kind of going through the cards that way. And we'll talk more about that, but you guys know my basic philosophy on that is mostly math. But in this game, the way it draws for you, it's a little bit of a mystery. So 12 and 12, I've found, is how we can pretty much coincide with the math, but get this thing to give us what we need 9 times out of 10. So 12 and 12 is what I went with there. 24 lands total, which seems to be the sweet spot for this game as well. 23 would probably be more agreeable to my delicate sensibilities, considering our curve out is at 5 and we've only got 4 5-cost cards. I would much rather that we curved out at 23 lands, but this thing draws abhorrently when you curve out at 23. You're never going to hit that 5th land ever, and we want that because those are, essentially, we're going to put bombs in air quotes when we're dealing with this deck, but that's essentially what we're doing there. Looking at the first 3 cards that we have Dispatch ×3. This is the strongest removal that we have in this entire deck. Do not use these lightly. You've got Galvanic Blasts for a lot of stuff. These are going to completely exile the creature when you hit that Metalcraft. Do not use these to tap target creature down unless it is going to save your life. And do not use it to get rid of something that's mildly annoying just because you have it in your hand. This is not to be thrown away. You have 3 super powerful 1-mana exile cards with minimal drawbacks considering the way that this deck is built. You have to hold on to these in order to have any chance of winning. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you run this build and you come crying to me and you say, Josh, this is a terrible build, I'll listen to you. But the first question I'm going to ask you is, are you using your dispatches correctly, young man or woman? And if you say no, then I can't help you. This is the most important card in the deck. Do not throw it away. We got 3 of those. We've got 4 Galvanic Blasts. Now this, of course, Metalcrafts for 4. The best thing about this card is that we're able to take it to the face. 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to do with this. But if you're in a situation where you want to get rid of something early, then you don't want to waste your dispatches, which you should be in all the time if you have both these cards in your hand, then you might want to take it to a creature, which is absolutely fine. 4 damage to the face for 1 mana at instant speed, though, is amazing. So we want to keep that in mind while we're playing this. Banefire is an auto add. It wins you the game. It also helps contribute to the fact that we have 24 lands in this pile because we want Banefire to go off. Myrmidon is a card that I have a love-hate relationship with. It doesn't bring a buddy onto the field or anything like that immediately, which actually would make this friggin' broken. I'm also kind of pissed off that this deck has a disturbing lack of like Memnites or something. It's definitely not an overpowered deck, and Memnite would not have caused that to happen. But Myrmidine's in this because it's going to crap out a 1/1 colorless artifact creature token when it leaves play. That's going to allow us to just kind of recycle. One thing that you have to keep in mind is that your Metalcraft is going to flicker in and out. If somebody kills this thing, you won't have Metalcraft, then you will have Metalcraft. That is an issue with cards later on in the deck. So be super mindful of the fact that if they kill this, there is a moment in time that you do not have Metalcraft. You know what? We're going to just spoil it so I can absolutely talk to you guys about this and make sure that we're all on the same page. So if you have 3 dudes out, this is all assuming that you have 3 dudes out. Let's say that you've got, 2 tokens and a Mere Sire. No, you've got a token, a Mere Sire, and an Etched Champion. You have 3 creatures out, 1 token, 1 Mere Sire, 1 Etched Champion. If they gank this mirror over here, if they gank the Sire, then there is a moment where this loses Metalcraft and is completely targetable, and they can, have actions. They are able to destroy this thing in the interim. Also, if you are swinging in with your Rusted Relic and they do that bullshit, it's going to flick in and out. You're going to lose Metalcraft for a moment, so be mindful of that at the very least. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but do not put this Mere Sire in dangerous situations intentionally, thinking that it's immediately going to pop back in, and you're not... Don't attack with this guy if you've only got 3 dudes out and you've got the Etched Champion, because that's going to give them a chance to block it, kill it, use the removal on your Etched Champion. That's what I'm telling you. Don't be reckless with this thing if you're counting on it for Metalcraft, because it will flicker. This deck is... It's a very in-depth deck, and I think that some of my judgment calls here need a lot of explanation. Dolmen Gate. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. The reason this is in here is because we have to apply constant pressure, and it's also the reason we're always going to take these to the face most of the time. Dolmen Gate's in there so that we can use our creatures as removal spells, essentially. We can attack in with a 1/1, put them in a position where if they block with anything, actually, because we prevent all damage, but if they block with something that's 1 in the ass, we're removing a threat from the field. Dolmen Gate also, of course, is going to play into that Metalcraft. It's a 2-drop that can buff our Metalcraft. That's great. Leonin Sun Standard, I never want to see 2 of when I'm playing, but I always want to see 1 of them. This card is amazing. It's going to get you out of danger every single time you see it. There's not a whole lot of scenarios, and there's not very many decks that are going to screw you once Leonin Sun Standard hits the field as far as removal is concerned in the format now. Now, this deck just almost completely bashes red-blue, and we'll get into that later. I actually already filmed a episode of this that'll go up on the site or go up on YouTube Saturday that shows Leonin Sun Standard dancing on red-blue because it messes up their math, and if you're smart about how you activate it, activating it once at a time, so you tap 2 mana, wait, see if they do anything, tap 2 mana, wait, see if they do anything. It's a great card. I don't want to see 2 of them, unfortunately, but I want to see 1 of them at least, so both of them are in the build. It raises your percentage chance of drawing them. Etched Champion, of course, and also to speak to that, that's why you want 60 cards in a deck, because percentage-wise, if I had 1 of these in here, I have a lower percentage of finding it every time. If I had 1 of them in there in 90 cards, then it is an infinitesimal tiny speck of a percentage chance that we will see a card that could win us the game. So you take the 30 worst cards and you throw them out of the deck, and you have 60 cards that you will see what you need when you need it more often. Statistically, you cannot argue with that. It is always better to have a 60 card deck because statistically, you will always have a better chance statistically of drawing what you need in any given situation with 60 cards. If you have a 70 card deck, there are 10 cards that are worse than another 10 cards in there. There are 10 cards that are worse than the other 60, throw those out. 10 cards that don't win you the game. And then you'll always have a better chance. And that's why we have Leonin Sun Standard, because math is magic, and magic is math, and 3 is a magic number. But they didn't give us that, so we've got 2. Etched Champion, we got 2 of. That thing's fucking protected. He's locked up, so we are going to keep him in there. He's a good card. Sculpting Steel's, not dope considering what they've given us, but it's still a really good card. It's 3 mana and we can copy pretty much anything. Master's Call is instant speed. That makes it pretty insane because we can have, we could have Rusty over here, Trusty Rusty, just sitting on the side, not doing a dang thing, and then all of a sudden we can Master's Call and we've got a 5/5 blocker and all sorts of crazy stuff. Master's Call at their end step's always a good play. That's a great card. We run 4 of them, 2 Sculpting Steels, 2 Etched Champions. Just want to make sure I said that. Unwilling Recruits, not crazy, but for 3 mana we're going to... Whoa, hold on. Yeah. Okay, I had to read through to get it, just make sure. It is sorcery speed, but for 3 mana, we're going to grab control of one of their creatures and be able to attack. You know, most all those spells are sorcery speed. There's not a whole lot where you can get some kind of crazy block thing going on. It's not a fantastic card. Basically, what this is going to do for us, though, is it's going to alleviate their late game threats and hopefully make their late game threats work for us. And if they have evasion or something like that, all the better. Now, of course, we're going to be in situations where their late game threats are not going to be good enough. They're going to be able to be chump blocked down or something like that, and we're still going to get hurt a lot. There's not a whole lot of perfect scenarios, but Unwilling Recruit, if used correctly, can win you the game, and at the very least can mess up the math enough that you can instant speed 4 damage to the face, or you can, if you're very lucky, Banefire them or something like that. I mean, it's difficult. At the very least, it's going to mess up their math and get one of their blockers on your side as an attacker. So you've effectively taken away 2 blockers because you've got the creature that you've taken control of and the creature that your opponent will have to use to block it. That's the best I can tell you. I mean, this deck is a little starved for surprise tricks like that, so Unwilling Recruit's in here. We've got Angel's Toothpick. This is a pretty good card. What it breaks down to is, you know, it's an 8 mana investment. You're going to play it that turn. The thing is that we top out at 5. That also really helps with the thought process behind Moonsilver Spear, is that we don't have a whole lot to do late game. So the 8 mana drop in equip cost, you know, a turn 4 Moonsilver Spear, I mean, it might cut into our Rusted Relic, but it's not going to cut into the rest of our late game pile. So basically what this boils down to is if you're arguing against this card, it's boiling down to an argument of, would you pay 4 mana each turn for a 4/4 creature with evasion? Yes, I would. Thank you for asking. That's always going to be my answer to that. Well, I mean, not always, but 4 mana for a 4/4 is pretty damn good. I get excited when Moonsilver Spear is in my hand and when it hits the field. It's a good card. And it's not going to really keep us, because everything else is conditional or situational. And so it's not really going to tie us up. And if it's tying you up, just don't do it that turn. But crapping out angels, our own little miniature angel factory, is never going to hurt us. Rusted Relic's one of the best cards in this pile. It's got Middlecraft of becoming a 5/5 golem artifact creature, and that is amazing. It's a 5/5 for 4, which is always good. There are tricks and drawbacks, of course, with any Middlecraft card. We already talked about this guy's main drawback is just he gets thrown back over there. He's not attacking anymore. It sucks. But you're going to have to deal with that. He's a 5/5 for 4. He has to be in this deck. He's kind of the driver of this deck. We've got 4 of him, 3 War Leader's Helix. This is, again, it's an 8 life point swing. Like, it's going to take you up 4, your opponent down 4. That's 8 total life exchange. It's going to mess up the math a lot. It's instant speed. Very seldom do I use it as removal, but sometimes we have to, obviously, but you also gain that life, so it's going to alleviate some of your pains as well and mess up that math. At the very least, if you got a big, huge dude attacking you and they think they're going to get you at even or get you at neg 1, neg 2, neg 3, you War Leader's Helix, you've got 1 life, and they've tapped out to try and attack you, and you have an opportunity to attack them the next turn. Hopefully you have enough to kill them. But War Leader's Helix, the life gain, don't discount the life gain just because life gain is generally not a great mechanic to go by. It's really good. It plays a big part in that card. Gratuitous Violence is great because of the art. I mean, what is going on with this guy's weird Mega Man hand? Like, he's got some kind of crazy harpoon fire cannon. The other dude's got his own Mega Man hand going on, but why is there a chain hanging off of it? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then, you know, it does other stuff. Who gives a shit about what it does? I just like the art a lot. It's like 2 proto-men in a Coliseum of Death, and I'm okay with that. Proto-man because he's red, obviously. If creature you control will deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage. It's great because it only works for us, and it's going to help. Oh, Cabal. I didn't realize it was from that set. It's going to really help us get through things late game. It's going to help us push through extra damage and beat our opponents. Speaking of pushing through extra damage and absolutely winning the game, no one realizes Concussive Bolt exists. I don't know why. I really don't. I mean, it's not a fantastic card, but for some reason it always surprises people. it's 4 damage plus whatever you have on the field. 9 times out of 10, that's enough to win. Just don't get confused and think that the blocking thing is Metalcraft, so make sure you know that. But pretty much everything in this deck is Metalcraft if it's good. So Concussive Bolt, though, at the very least, if you don't have Metalcraft, is 4 damage. But that sorcery speed, 5 mana for 4 damage is really shitty. So you really want that Metalcraft to be a part of that equation every time. So that's worth talking about. People that are up here, really this is going to go very quickly. People that are up here are creatures that don't give me Metalcraft. Like, you can complain all day long about this deck running poorly. The problem I think that a lot of builds have, and the reason why people are going to say that this deck runs poorly, is that they have too many of these kind of guys in there. Like, they're great. A 3/3 for 1 is a badass card. I love that. That'd be amazing. But they don't add to your Metalcraft. They don't pump themselves. They don't help themselves out. They're not going to make themselves a 3/3. You know, they're not going to help your Edge Champions. They're not going to help your Rusted Relics. This is a rush to the finish. And I need Metalcraft as early as possible. Not to mention the fact that I need Metalcraft so that I can get my Dispatches online and my Galvanic Blasts online. I can't afford to have creatures that aren't playing into that whole role. So anything that's a creature that's not giving me Metalcraft, that's just a regular colored creature, is up here. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. Infiltration Lens is not good enough. Bone Splitter +2/+0 for 2 mana is not good enough. Same thing before. These things all... And you know, people are going to argue with me about that. I think it's the right decision, to be honest with you. They don't play into Metalcraft, so they're all out. Livewire Leash is not strong enough. We don't have enough... We don't have anything at all, really, that takes advantage of that ability. Like, we don't have anything that just targets stuff. Volshock Morningstar, I remember that was one of the first, that was the first equipment card I ever got, and it blew my damn mind. Like, when I opened the pack, I pulled out the little leaflet that was explaining what equipment was, and I was like, what are you talking about? So that's a card, but it's garbage, so that's up there. A lot of people are going to argue with me about Scarecrow, probably. We can't really abuse it. It's a good card, but we can't abuse it in this deck like I would want to. Return target artifact creature card. Like, you're going to have these mirrors, and you're going to have these tokens. And the tokens it's not going to do anything for, and these guys are not worth... It's straight back onto the battlefield, which I understand, but shit, you guys. It's not... These guys don't count because they're not creature cards. They're just artifacts. I mean, in this build, it's absolutely not a good card. At the most, it's going to block down and draw us a card, which is great. I like card draw, and, you know, essentially that gains us life because it's stopping damage from hitting us, but it's not as broken as it could be or should be, and so it's upstairs. These are just the crappy Metalcraft cards. Like, it has flying, but it's a 3 mana, so your 3-drop could be a 2/2 flyer. That's not terrible, but it's not really what I'm working towards. Lightning Coils is a volatile card. It takes forever to get going. You have to have 5 counters on it. At that point, you're probably dead. It does activate late game, that's for sure. So it could dig you out of a hole, but it's not going to dig you out of a hole as assuredly as something like Concussive Bolt is. There's a lot of different things that your opponent has to do, and be mindful that that's on the field. Concussive Bolt is a surprise. I know it's sorcery speed, but it's a surprise in the fact that it is in your hand. This thing is on the field, your opponent knows and can dance around it, maybe. Druid Sack is just slow. It's got a lot of different things they can do. If it crapped out artifact creature tokens instead of Saprolines, maybe it would be in the deck. I did run it for a little while, but it's not strong enough. This thing's too situational. We do have a lot of instants, and, you know, sorceries aren't really going to affect that too much, but it's just not good enough. 3-drop, I'm not doing anything. It is charging up my Metalcraft, but that's not good enough. This is another crappy Metalcraft creature. It's a 4/4 for 4. No, I have a 4-drop that's a 5/5. What the... Get the hell out of here with that garbage. This is a 3/1 double striker. What? Get out of here. This is the other spear. I don't want 2 of those ever because I like seeing it, but not that much. This is too conditional. Like, sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it does jack shit, and so I'm not going to, like, tap down 3 for the opportunity to do jack shit. You can absolutely put this in the build. You can put this in the build and you can take out Unwilling Recruit. I'll tell you that right now. If you're a gambling person, I'm not. Like I said at the start of this, I like set builds with very fixed win ratios. If you are more of a gambling individual, you can definitely pop this out and pop this in, gamble to your heart's content. I will say, always point that at your opponent's face, because if that does not kill the creature you're pointing it at, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel real bad. So always point that at your opponent's face, because at the very least it's going to do 1 damage. But if it doesn't kill the creature that you're pointing at, you're going to feel sad. Well, it might do nothing, actually, so never mind. But wait, doesn't it at least do 1? If it's revealed land, okay, equal to the number of non-land cards. Yeah, no, it doesn't, so it can't do nothing. This guy costs 55,000 mana. Get the hell out of here. This is the other one of these. I don't want 2 of them. The last Concussive Bolt, I mean, we do just run a 3-pack. That's because I don't need Concussive Bolt in my opening hand. I want to see it later. That's generally the rule of Magic when you're building a 60, is that if you want four cards if you want it in your opener, 3 if you want to see it. So that's generally how the builds go. So Concussive Bolt's upstairs. Duplicant is just like shitty removal. He doesn't make a copy of the creature. He just gets its power and toughness. And anymore, a lot of the stuff in the format, it's their abilities that make them dangerous. You do get rid of that other creature, which, I mean, if you want to be sloppy with your dispatches, you might want to throw a Duplicant in, because it'll allow you to be a little bit crazier. But no, I don't. I don't like that. And they've got Razor Rhino, I know, but he doesn't look much like a Rhino. Well, I guess he's got the little spindly thing. He's crap. And then we've got Pentavus, which is like 7 mana for a 5/5 for shit's sake. It doesn't even have flying. It looks like it could fly. I mean, the pieces are flying. Oh, the pieces do fly. It's still shitty. And there you go, you guys. That is my 60 for Warsmith. I had to look up in the corner because I thought it was like Metalcraft. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, you guys. I really enjoyed putting it together. This was a deck that took a lot of thought. Bear with me through the week of gameplay that we're going to have coming up. But if you already vehemently disagree with me, go ahead and hit up the comment section below. Let people know what your opinion is, and we can figure out what deck is best for them. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate the view. As always, be sure to check out my other channel where you can watch any of these 3 fine videos. We're going to have a new app review coming up soon, so be sure to check out that VVV app review while you can. And then, of course, we also have 2 concurrent Let's Plays going on, one of Shovel Knight and one of the amazing 1001 Spikes. Shovel Knight, also amazing. So be sure to check out my other channel or click the links that have appeared on your screen if you have annotations enabled, and it'll take you straight to them. And it really helps out the site a lot. It helps me out a lot, and I would really appreciate it. But even if you don't, I want to thank you one more time for checking out this video and say that I'll see you tomorrow.